Welcome to part 6, the bedbug dinghy build. I've designed and I'm building a cruising dinghy for 2 people for sailing and sleeping on board in the desert. Last part I was kind of miserable as there was just a lot of slow, tedious fitting panels and stuff, but this part of the build I actually enjoyed some of the kind of problem solving and interesting parts of this as I made a hatch cover for that big foredeck hatch. And then I put that foredeck on and put that hatch on. Had an issue or two with it, which I'll talk about. At the aft seat, I made a sleeve through that aft seat that's going to have the mast for the mizzen. And I started gluing some of these seats and pieces together finally after fitting them and just kind of getting them prepped for so long. So first thing I did here is that front deck, this big front deck. My goal with this front deck was to make the boat feel wide open. So one of my goals in this boat was to make it feel as big and open as possible, this little 15.5-foot dinghy. I wanted to get rid of things like bench seating and like side decks and center boards, trunks, and all that stuff that crowds up small boats. So the front half of this boat is all just one big flat deck, and it's going to have a hatch in the middle of it. Hopefully you should be able to just walk and sit and lay in areas on that foredeck. And then you can put all your gear underneath there, stow it in there, put the deck cover on, and it'll be out of sight and out of the way. So I cut that opening to fit, and then I need to make a lip for my hatch cover, for my hatch opening. I raised, what is this, about an inch and a quarter. Half-lapped the corners of this as recommended by Jim McCalick to seal it. I assume this is to just make that joint seal water out better because all of these are getting glued down to, half-inch ply. So PL Premium to expand in there and seal everything out, and then just all the clamps you have. So I'm cutting up some poplar boards that are going to go on my hatch cover. And I get that hatch cover fitted where I want it, and I use hot glue to glue the 2 ends of poplar boards on just to keep that frame rigid in the right shape. Then I come back in and I work from the middle out to glue down these planks that cross this hatch cover. In between them, this was a mistake, I'll explain why later. In between them, I used this PL Premium roof flashing sealant that I really like, but it did not work for this. It shrank, and we'll see the effects of it when I put the hatch cover on. Maybe PL Premium would have been the right choice, but it would have expanded. And so now I'm stuck with this hatch cover that's warped up at the ends, and I don't know if I'm even going to fix it. I might just fasten it down real hard. It looks good though. I mean, it looks like it's going to work. Also, I had an issue as I was putting these pieces on my hatch cover frame that I didn't do the squeeze out evenly, and so they were a little bit angled. So they weren't at a 90-degree angle as I moved outward towards the ends. It was a little bit off, and later I cut it back down, but you can still kind of notice if you pay close attention. Put a layer of primer and then a layer or 2 of oil-based enamel inside the hatch. And I left 2 spots without paint on them near the aft end of that. One of those is where the daggerboard trunk is going to come out of, and I need to glue that down. The other one, I might put a piece of timber underneath and put cleats on top so that I've got lines running from the mast to operate things like downhole tension and my spar, my sprit, I guess you'd call that. I've got lines drawn out, centered for the cleats that are going to support the daggerboard trunk. Come in and drill pilot holes now. I took a second thought on this, and I should have put that daggerboard on the starboard side. I don't remember why I decided that, but I thought about it and decided that. A little bit of moisture and some PL Premium. Spread it all out. I love those yellow spreaders. Getting this deck on is like putting a jigsaw puzzle together a little bit, but once you get it kind of just in the right spot, it drops right down into place. I was really happy with how this ended up fitting, even after I traced the originals when I went to a little bit of a thicker plywood from 3/8 to 1/2 inch. Finish those pilot holes and then put screws in it to his clamping pressure. And this is where that dagger board is. I should have put more screws in working towards the fore and aft center of the dagger board, but I forgot. That should be okay. So now I come back, take some clamps off, and it looks good. So now I come back and put that hatch cover on, and you can see it's a little bit concave fore and aft because that roof flashing that I put to seal between the pieces of board, that roof flashing, I think it dried up a little bit and shrank. So now I got to test out to see if you can actually get in this thing. I know this sounds crazy, but one of my goals in this is to put down 2-inch insulation foam on the bottom of this. Then I can come in on a really cold day of dinghy cruising, come in at the end of the night, crawl into here, put the hatch cover on, and there should be a low volume of air in there, and I'm hoping that it'll keep me pretty warm, but maybe a little claustrophobic. But to be honest, I don't know, maybe it's just this crazy wild world that I'm happy to escape by shutting myself off in a little cabin in a plywood boat in my garage, but it's actually felt kind of cozy in there. And the forward end of that is going to be access to the rotating mast, the base of the rotating mast. So I need to figure out where I'm going to put my mizzen mast, how far offset I'm going to put it. One of the goals is to put it as close to center line as possible. And I debated putting it right on center line and making the rudder off-centered, but I'm going to keep that rudder centered, and then I'm going to offset my mizzen mast, but you want to keep it as close to the center as you can so that you don't get disturbance from the main sail on the mizzen sail, and you can actually use that mizzen sail for power. So you want to keep it close to center, but you got to get it out of the way of the tiller. So I'm going to kind of mock this up. So that's going to be my pivot point. Let's say my tiller is about that thick, and I need it to get to there. Say I want it to go about 45. My mizzen is going to be 2 1/4. So let's go 2 1/4 right there. So let's mark that. So to there, 2 3/4 makes that right there, which is 7 inches. So we're going to offset it 7 inches. Okay, so this mizzen mast, I want to put a sleeve through that aft seat tank because I want that aft seat tank to have positive buoyancy, so when this boat capsizes, it has more buoyancy up high. I'm a little bit nervous that that buoyancy under the floor is going to make this thing want to turtle. So I put some volume at the stern. Also, that stern seat with that tank at the back of the stern seat is really going to stiffen up the stern of this boat. It's got 4 places that it's crossing the transom to stabilize that. So there's 10, 11, 12, 3/4. Yeah. So that'll be my sleeve, 1/2 inch on both sides. So I'm going to do a 1/2 inch on all sides to leave room for the sleeve and to do some fillets top and bottom. And then I'm going to cut out that section for my 2 3/4 inch mast. So the sleeve's going to be a little bit wider. I think it's a 1/4 inch on each side than the opening for the mast. Well, I guess you'd call that a partner or a step, maybe. Also, this aft seat, you can see a piece of ash across the front face of it that crosses the length of the seat. I put an additional piece of fur about halfway between there and the back of the seat, crossing it widthwise, laterally, the same way. Because this 3/8 inch plywood really needed some reinforcing. I'm also going to put cleats underneath that at the edges where those meet the planking on the sides. Another option that I considered on this was putting a removable support right in the middle of that, but I thought it was just overcomplicating things. I'll deal with maybe a touch of extra weight. Okay, even fitting out this mast sleeve was fun. I had an issue with this mast sleeve where I didn't want to take it off and then glue it together and have it not go back in fitting right. So I hot glued these 3 pieces down and I hot glued them to each other. Then I came back in with some thickened epoxy and put it at the edges where they meet. Then I can come put the back piece on and scribe the top flush to where I need to cut it. And then bring a hot glue gun in and get that hot glue soft, and I should have this mast partner solid in one piece. But I can come back and reinforce it with epoxy now. And it shouldn't move, and I can cut the top off. So now I'm gonna seal it all up and attach it with epoxy. I'm using one of my scrapers that I cut a round corner on it to make fillets. I really like that. Then I waited till it was a little bit soft and did that alcohol technique with just a little bit of rubbing alcohol on a plastic glove and soften it all up. And if you don't do that, I am getting a little bit better with epoxy. I'm not a fan yet. But if you don't come back with a finger or something and soften that up, the epoxy will dry. It'll cure in every little like swirl that leaves these real sharp edges sometimes. And I'll come back with epoxy work and get all cut up sometimes if I don't go back and soften my fillets. Still like PL Premium more though, because I'm going to attach the top of this mostly with PL Premium. I know people probably think I'm crazy working with multiple adhesives in one glue up, but I don't like epoxy, and PL Premium is just easy to work with. Okay, so now I'm coming up back and I'm fitting this Midship's seat, and this is going to be 3 planks running laterally, and I just need to put some cleats on them to fasten them all together. So I did a little trick here. I thought I was clever when I did this. With that middle plank where I wanted it, and I came and glued these cleats. I glued them to the boat, not to that middle plank, but I glued them where they would go if that middle plank was there. So now I can come back and put in the forward plank and the aft plank, and I can glue them to that cleat exactly where that cleat is going to fit with these parts of the seat on it. And I just clamped them until either that hot glue broke or maybe it didn't even break. But now I've got this seat framed up exactly how I want it. Here I had to break that glue. And it's slow, I admit, but I still think I'm clever. Because once that glue's cured, I've got the rough part of my seat fit exactly how I want it to fit. And that is going to end it for part 6 of the desert bedbug dinghy, cruising dinghy for 2 people, sleeping on board, storing everything out of the way, trying to make it feel like a big boat. Want a yawl so that you just set that mizzen and point into the wind and you can figure stuff out. Want it to look good. I think it's looking good. Next part 7, I'm gonna get my dog is shedding. All right, Cheech, come up and let's talk about part 7. All right, cruising dinghy for 2 people and a dog. Oh, I need that mic. Oh. Okay, let's mic you, dog. Put the mic on the dog. Okay. All right, hold up. All right, cruising dinghy for 2 people and a dog, and maybe 3 people in September. We'll that big foredeck too. My dog will be able to sit out on that deck and get a view of the water. So hopefully she likes the boat too. Next part of the build. Okay. Next part of the build, part 7. I'm going to start looking at trying to flip it, and it's not going to work. So I'm going to have to make some adjustments and lift it and do a little bit of extra work. That's some of the prettiest work on a boat, in my opinion. So part 7 is going to be prepped to finally do paint and finish work on the outside. Now we're done. Thanks for watching. Bye, guys. Good girl. Go ahead, dog.